So just before we get going with today's Meet the Publishers session, I'd like to acknowledge Factor, Government of Canada, and Canada's private radio broadcasters for their support of MMF Canada in general, and sessions like today's as well. So thanks also to Music Publishers Canada and Margaret McGuffin, who, as Andrea noted, helped to put this together. And we've got a great panel of speakers to share their expertise. So with that, Margaret, I'll pass it over to you to get this session rolling.
Great. Thank you very much, Amy and Andrea, for inviting us today. We are very happy at Music Publishers Canada to be starting to work on new projects with MMF, and we hope there's more to come in 2021. I'm here today with 4 of my members, but Music Publishers Canada was formerly known as the Canadian Music Publishers Association, CMPA, until last year. And then we rebranded to Music Publishers Canada, where we represent all of the major and independent music publishers with offices in Canada. And our members are from across Canada. I want to shout out here, I see Patrick Zulinov and Jim Campbell. They're 2 of our members who are in the audience today, and sorry if I missed anybody else. So, but you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from publishers. And so I'm going to get Cheryl to introduce herself first. Thanks.
We'll give a shout out to Jody Fernyhow. I saw him on there too.
Oh, yes.
Jody, stop creeping on us. Just kidding.
He's just watch me.
He's gonna fill out that survey later. I'm Cheryl Link. I work at Pure Music Canada. I am the senior creative director. What that means is I deal with synchronization as well as songwriter development, artist development based on our roster. Pure Music Canada is the Canadian office of Pure Music, which is a US owned and controlled company. And it's family run, and we are, what are we now, 92 years old, I think. So we've been in Canada though for 40 plus years. Some of you may also know our managing director, Neville Quinlan, and we have one other person at our office. Her name is Rachel Bestard. We are a pretty lean and mean team. And I don't want to take up too much of the time because we can get into things in this way.
Okay, Jordan, tell us about yourself and CCS.
Yeah, so my name is Jordan Howard. I am the creative director and head of A&R at CCS Rights Management. We're based out of Toronto. We are a full service creative and administrative rights management company. We work with artists, major label artists, independent artists from like internationally. We work with an artist named Karis and Tara Lightfoot, Noella Charles, Yukon Blonde, Colin James, kind of run the gambit as far as genre goes. And then we also work with television properties such as Paw Patrol and Schitt's Creek. And my job is to kind of oversee all of the creative process for our roster and then also manage our creative department and our team in-house.
And Nicole, and just we're welcoming Nicole as our one of our 2 new board members too. So Nicole, introduce yourself and tell us about Anthem.
Thanks, Margaret. My name is Nicole Pratt. I am the Director of Administration at Anthem Entertainment. We're a company who has been around, previously known as Olay. We rebranded last year as Anthem Entertainment. Been around since about 2006. So I run the department that's in charge of registrations, receipt processing, and our client service. So had a lot of contact with Margaret over the years and very happy to be a part of MPC.
And finally, Odette, tell us about yourself and Third Side.
Hi, I'm Odette. I'm from Third Side Music based in Montreal. Another independent publisher. I do, my role is similar to Nicole's. I'm the head of catalog and copyright. The company was founded in about 2005. I started in 2008, so I've been there since the early days. Let's see, we work with, Sophie Tucker, Bad Bad Not Good, Kurt Vile, Beverly Glenn Copeland, and then a bunch of Montreal artists and whatnot, and mostly independent artists. And then we also do catalog management of the Clyde Music Group, Soundwave Records, Studio One, some different larger catalogs. Yeah, so this is the first time I'm doing one of these panels, so I'm happy to be here and happy to meet you all.
Thank you. So we're going to start with Jordan. There's 3 different areas we're going to be talking about before we dive into the questions about relationships with managers. We're going to be talking about creative. We're going to be talking about business development, which includes sync. And we're also going to be talking about the core of how you get the money in administration. So let's start talking about creative focus of companies. And all of the companies here are creative companies. When you look at a music publisher, you will find some will just do the business side for you. Others will help you more with creative development, and others are very good at sync. You've got to really understand the mix of these 3 things when you're looking for a music publisher. And not everybody looks at the creative side of things. So Jordan, tell us about what makes CCS different and some of the work you do on the creative side of songwriter development.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the things that we really try to focus on, and when Jody Fernie, who was the president of our company, hired me 6 or some odd years ago now, it's been long enough that I've actually forgotten how long it's been. There was a real focus that we wanted to put on being very hands-on and with our songwriters and with our managers. And so we really kind of take almost a managerial style approach to our songwriters. Really want to be involved in the day-to-day kind of aspect of the songwriting process with a lot of our clients. So that means, often I'm when I'm working with a manager and the relationship is really good, I'm in on radio calls, A&R meetings with the label heads sometimes, or the A&R at the labels. I'm really trying to dive deep into the creative process for that particular artist, so that I know what when I'm setting up songwriting sessions for that artist, what exactly is wanted and what direction that particular artist is going in. And so, we've really tried to make that a huge focus with our roster and with our managers who represent our roster. And oftentimes, one of the things that I think is the best, when a relationship is going really, really well, it's when I have a direct relationship with that songwriter or that artist. But second to that, and not even that much further beyond that, is if I have a great relationship with the managers. That's when the relationship really tends to prosper. And the managers that use us the most are the ones that definitely see the best results for their artists. And we've really tried to make an emphasis on that at CCS.
You touched on song camps and co-writes. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important to your strategy for songwriter development? Yeah,
I mean, well, first of all, just on the bare principle of the fact that the songwriting and is almost like a muscle, and you need to use it all the time or you lose it. So we try and keep our writers writing as often as humanly possible. And a lot of that now, especially during COVID, has become virtual, and some of that has been it's some challenges for sure, but also it comes with its rewards. In the fact that now, when I'm setting up songwriting sessions for our artists or our songwriters, they can write with anybody around the world, and that has been a definite bonus to this. And we really song camps have been a pretty vital kind of. They've been key to some of our songwriters' successes. We actually have Karis in the MPC camp as we speak. There's a songwriting camp going on with Music Publishers Canada in conjunction with the AIMP in the US. And that's going on right now. I've done maybe a dozen camps for our artists so far during COVID. And we thought that maybe all of that was going to go away, and we didn't know what we were going to do as soon as everything shut down. And the fact that these camps have actually been a viable substitute for in-person writing has been a real savior for us.
And just a point on that for everyone around, we just completed a study of what our members revenue looks like. And the really surprising thing has been that over the course of 10 years, the percentage of revenue from foreign sources has just gone off the charts. And now the companies that you're looking at here and our other independent members, 80% of the revenue is coming from foreign sources. So the market is no longer just Canada. And so when we're talking about all the activities we're talking about today, it's about finding money and finding creative partnerships around the world, which is a good segue to talking to Cheryl, because your company has offices around the world. So when you're talking about creative development of your songwriters, you're looking at how you can promote them to peer around the world. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have 34 offices in, I think it's 31 countries. So not that many, really. Just kidding. We are in a lot of the major territories, and because we do have so many offices, we do have regular meetings as well. Like especially with COVID, it's been, I think we hyped it up a bit more. We have sync meetings that are international, and there's about 18 of us on there. So it's all the major territories speaking about what's going on, how we can collaborate. We have a playlist that we do to highlight our roster to the other offices. We also have creative meetings with the North Americans and UK regularly. And there is a lot of communication in between, because all the offices around the world, even though it sounds like a lot, we're all pretty small. And so it's pretty easy to get people on the phone and reply to emails. But yeah, it's a big push for us. Like when we're looking at signing people, obviously the big thing for us is loving the artist, loving the songwriter, but also finding if other teams around the world can use this in their territory, or if it's of value, because everyone is signing stuff that is obviously major to their market, but we want our market to go outside, and we want that border to not be there. So, you know, whether it's one of our writers like Dave Hamlin, who is doing really well US wise, but then we've also got Lido Pimenta, who is a huge deal, not just in South America. She's started now, like she's up for a Latin Grammy, which is tomorrow, yay. So, you know, having her highlight it to our US office, having our US office on board, like the head of the Latin team has been so instrumental in the success and the hype I think that we're getting at the Latin Grammys and all these other things that she's done for us. And then we've got other artists that do well in Europe. You know, like Hannah Georges is getting write-ups in NME lately on her new record. So it's just one of those things, it's like keep pushing internationally, and how do we collaborate with that?
So one of the things all of you have taught me over the 4 years is that your current songwriters are key to your success, but many of you represent old songs that keep on being synced and matched, and not necessarily the same recording being synced, but the song being synced over and over and re-released. Can you talk about how you pitch your back catalog and your current catalog for sync, Cheryl?
Sure. So anyone that is, I don't know, like here what level the managers are at with music supervisors, but when we're pitching to music supervisors, we're trying to find out first and foremost through those relationships what it is that they're looking for their projects. And, you know, like the hot thing right now on a lot of the ads is they want those catalog songs, but they don't necessarily want original recordings. So it's having those covers. And I'm sure like everyone on here has some of their artists covering some of their songs, which brings new life to it because you can bring it up. Like we have You Are My Sunshine, which is not PD, in case you're going to go cover that. But so You Are My Sunshine is one of those songs in our catalog where we have, I don't even know how many versions at this point. We have like a spooky theme typed one by one of our writers in the US, which is great for horror films, and it's been used in a bunch of horror films. But then we've got the playful cheeriness that is great for, you know, a commercial that might be like margarine or something, who knows. But so that way that song kind of never goes away. But there's other songs too, like Every Day by Buddy Holly. You get re-records of that. And, you know, we have like beautiful versions of people doing it that we don't even necessarily work with. Like Claire de Pirot has some great covers in her catalog. She did some covers years ago that I find useful in pitching, and hopefully one of these days like we'll land something. But you know, finding these things, it's not necessarily just our roster that we're getting these covers of, it's finding those things through CMRA and SOCAN when we're collecting mechanicals, is see who's recording them. And you know, we'll go into the administration aspect and what we're talking about mechanicals, but when you license a song or record it and put it up, it's great to let publishers know about that, because everyone's always looking for new recordings. And if you've got something, then we can work together with you, with your artist, on getting exposure for that song and that cover.
Great, thanks. Nicole's, this is a great segue into, it all comes down to the metadata and making sure all the writers are listed on a song. Can you comment a little bit about how your team works to make sure that you get all the splits, and then what you do with that information and that metadata to collect money from around the world?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's part of our core business, because everything comes down to the song, right? So it comes down to ensuring that we have proper splits, that they're registered so that they can be paid. So many times, you know, you get incomplete information. You know, writers maybe haven't decided, they do a songwriting session and they maybe don't decide, you know, on splits right away. I think it's really important that whatever you're doing with your artists and your songwriters, that you're hammering out those splits right away, and that you're submitting that metadata to your publisher. It's so important. It's the basis of everything that part of what we do for you in collecting income. If we don't have that information, we're really unable to collect the income from the PROs, from the CMOs. So we work really closely with our catalog team just to make sure we have complete metadata, we have IPI information, splits.
What's IPI? What's IPI information?
Interested party information. Yeah, interested party. Yes, that's right. It's every publisher, or sorry, every songwriter will have a unique IPI number. So that's really important to submit when you're submitting your catalog to your publisher, because that's the identifier that the PRO and the CMO is going to use to link your work with your share of your song. So the more data, the better. You can't provide enough information to a publisher so that we can, you know, properly register your work and get you paid.
And then there's other metadata standards. I guess the key one is IPI, which you can find out from your PRO, but
Absolutely.
Each song has its own identifier.
Yes, each song has an ISWC as well, which is unique to each work. And that's important as well, to be providing. The recording of a song has an ISRC, which is unique to the sound recording, but on the pub side, it's the ISWC. Which would be the most important as well.
And I think the super skill of the publishers is they connect the recording to the song. So they're able to connect that ISRC to the ISWC. And in real terms, that will ensure that the songwriter gets paid, or the composer.
Absolutely. And there's more and more, you know, especially with the digital world right now, everyone's looking for an ISRC. So, you know, if we're able to provide that ISRC to them, they can link the sound recording, we can link to the publishing. So it all comes kind of full circle. So like I said, the more identifiers you have, the better. So just so that we can collect as much of your income as possible. And we'll collect that income. We'll collect mechanicals, performance, you know, digital. So it's really important.
So Odette, we were talking about this yesterday too, about the importance of the metadata and the role that publishers can play in making sure that people are paid, songwriters are paid. But I guess one of the biggest frustrations is trying to get the songwriter to get the splits in so they will get paid. So what's your pro tip, Odette, on how to make sure that information gets submitted to the publisher or to the company like SOCAN as soon as possible?
Well, I guess I can piggyback off of some of what Nicole is saying. I mean, I think the metadata question never gets old. I mean, the best way to get paid is to have great metadata, have as much information. I think, you know, about the IPI, just to clarify, IPI means joining, for a writer, it means joining a society. You becoming a member of a society, because I think, sometimes there's a misconception that writers, the writer has to join the society in order to collect their writer's share. So the IPI identifies the writer as, as the very specific writer. And it's also, obviously important for us to have the correct IPI, in cases, especially where someone maybe has a more common name. I've been in situations where, someone's like, these societies, they don't, they never pay me. And I'm like, you have a very common name. Are you sure you're correctly identified on your works? And then it turns out that the whole thing, had been mapped to a different person of the same name. So yeah, I mean, I guess the pro tip really is to, make sure that as a songwriter, you begin by, choosing your society, joining the society, ensuring that you get that information and that you communicate it to your publisher, or even to your manager. I mean, obviously here we're with managers. I think, as managers, you want to start collecting this information, from your songwriters, make sure that you have the proper identifiers for them to communicate to the societies or to the publishers, but also to labels. Because I mean, another thing about the ISRC, the ISRC, the recording code is, it sort of started as a precedent that YouTube set, where they chose the ISRC as a marker for how they were going to identify songs. And the ISRC now has become, sort of universally used. But in examples, for instance, in Spotify and whatnot, Spotify takes the information from the label. So you want the label to have as much information as they can have, so that when they're putting information in, it's matching up with what publishers are putting in. And the more information everyone's putting in, the faster those matches happen, and the faster the money starts flowing. I think a lot of my dealings with managers can be questions about splits. As Nicole was saying, we want people to have the full information, but also when there is questions about splits, when there's a split that comes in that needs to be amended or corrected, it can take a very long time to correct a split in every territory, because every society works a little bit differently for how amendments are carried through. So yeah, having the clearest and most complete information. I would even argue that, taking the time to make sure that the split is complete and confirmed before sending it out, instead of sending out 3 different versions of the split, because then you create duplicates. And there are so many databases right now, and they're all collecting information in different ways, and they're all matching information to other databases, and it can take a very long time to clean something up. So
yeah, so I guess, when songwriters are in a room and they're writing, or they're in a recording space, and then another person comes in, it's slightly awkward, and they don't want to kill the creative vibe, but we know that if you can come out of the studio once that song's been written, and you can actually finalize the splits there, you're going to get paid quicker. So I think it's a really important point to take away.
Sorry to interrupt for Margaret and Odette, because one of the things you said is really encourage your writers, once they've created the song and they've had that creative magic, before they leave the room, decide on the splits. And they can all jot it down in a quick email to the manager, and provided that the song is finished, obviously, but jot down the splits, share it with everyone, because, if a song's not quite finished, but everyone feels that they've contributed, and then someone else takes it elsewhere, it's easier to say, well, okay, how are we going to divvy this up? So, a lot of the people that will ask the question, they'll say, wait a second, if there's 3 of us in the room, how do we decide? And I mean, we usually encourage, Jordan could speak to this too, is usually encourage that you don't know where that hit part of the song is. So 3 in a room, split it 3 ways. It's kind of called the Nashville style, but if you take that song elsewhere and you've got somebody else working on it, then, obviously you have to loop back to everyone and loop back to the managers and the writers and say, okay, so now how are we going to rework this amendment, and who's going to take less, and what parts were amended? But again, bottom line, at the end of the session, after the creative magic has happened, do the administration.
So I'm going to move on. We had some questions that were sent in prior to the session, and a few of them are the same sort of theme of how do managers work with publishers, and how do artists work with publishers, with the manager as part of that team. Can I get Jordan, when does it work and why is that?
I mean, it depends on it. I mean, it really depends on the artist and what they need from their publisher. I think first and foremost, if there are some artists that we work with and songwriters that we work with that really only need us for administrative support, and so I'm not, and we're not as close day to day with them as we would be with other artists who need us for more creative support. I think when it works is when there is an open line of communication where we as publishers are seen as vital team members and important to the ecosystem of that artist, rather than someone who is brought in after the fact or is seen as only kind of a tertiary member of the team. I think when we are used and brought into conversations, like I said earlier, that I'm in on radio calls all around the world with some of our artists, and marketing calls and A&R calls, and sometimes those calls are important, and sometimes I don't need to know that information right away, but all of the information that I'm given through management and involved in those conversations assists me going forward when I'm having conversations with our sub-publishers, for example, on behalf of our artists. So I become the gatekeeper of that information to, say, the people who work for us in Germany or who work for us in the UK. And I have to then relay that information when I'm trying to get them excited or get them pitching at that artist in a different territory. So when it works is when I have absolutely as much information as I can possibly have. And when we are brought in early and often, I would say.
And Odette, we were talking about this yesterday. It's you can help collect money from around the world, and one of the things you also need from managers is the lyrics. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, lyrics is an interesting one because when I first started there, people were still printing records, and a lot of times the label could just provide the lyrics because they had it in like a Word document because it was in the liner notes of whatever. But it's been this interesting thing where lyrics have actually become super important. I think people, just recently Spotify started including lyrics on their site. I think it's beta, I'm not sure. They've tried a couple times to put it out. Obviously there's the licensing because, I think people don't think about the fact that the lyrics are actually part of the composition. These are part of the rights that publishers manage. And
you can get money from it.
And yes, and it's worth money. And the thing is, those lyrics, that are visible online and whatnot, are licensed. We license those rights to print the lyrics. And so, so it becomes this important thing. It's becoming more and more important, but sort of in a funny way. It's not clear where to get those lyrics from. And we keep, we encounter artists that never wrote them down, so yeah, I think it's one of those pieces of metadata that people have sort of forgotten about, but is coming back. And then I don't know, there was a funny thing that with I think it was, I can't remember which site it was, one of the lyric sites that because the thing is, what's happening is publishers are getting lyrics. It's like this cycle that's happening where we need the lyrics and we're getting them off online sources, and then they're being sent back in. So it's like creating this sort of echo chamber. But actually the best source of the lyrics obviously is always the artist. And if we can get the lyrics, the confirmed lyrics from the artist, it's really ideal. And again, we are licensing those rights, those lyric find sites and whatnot, some of them are sort of wiki and users put the lyrics in as they understand them. But as publishers, we want to license those rights. We want to generate income from that because the lyrics are part of the copyrighted composition.
And Cheryl, I know you have a peer international database with lyrics and themes and such, and you've talked to me about how you use that to pitch on things like Sync for Ads if they're looking for specific lyrics, specific themes.
Yeah, so one platform that a lot of people are using now in publishing, also at record labels, it's called Disco. And, here's a big plug for them. It's really amazing because they have the tags available where you can put in the lyrics for the songs. And then obviously you have your writers translate it if it's in another language. And because we're global, we all have access to everyone's songs. And so I can do a search, it's my midday, but in Europe it's their end of day. So I can do a quick search on like a theme or a lyric. Like, am I looking for like some obscure lyric, or am I looking for love? And through tagging and the lyrics, being able to search the lyrics, it can narrow down my search. And also, because of time changes, you're able to access everyone else's catalog, and it helps with the search that way for music supervisors.
I have a couple questions here, and anyone can jump in. How similar or different would it be if you're managing a producer of the beat?
I saw that question. I was like, hey. So managing a producer of a beat isn't that different than managing somebody who is a writer. There's two main elements to a song. There's the music, and then there's the lyrics. And someone who's doing beats, I would put them in the element of music. So they're not, you'll hear the word top liner. So top liner is someone who is lyrics. If they're doing strictly beats, this is very genre specific, and you're going to try to pair them up and put them in the rooms with people that are writing lyrics more so that their music is going to be underlined, or you'll pair them up with people who are also creating music. And if they've got this amazing beat, you put it into the rest of the music and it can just add to that. So I don't think you can really say that it's that different. They're a creator, and they're a creator of music. And so that's how you would work with them. Jordan can also probably weigh in.
But Odette, do you want to?
Oh, I was going to jump in just from an administrative point of view. I think the challenges that I see often with producers in particular is that a lot of times they don't protect their own rights. Like they'll make a beat and they'll send it out to people, and they don't sort of follow the pitch or whatever. And often we come across situations where perhaps a producer doesn't take a composition. There's different ways that a producer can be involved in the production of a work, and sometimes they take points or something, and they don't take composition shares. So I think I would say, as a manager or producer, I would think about what are the rights that you're going to ask for, that you're going to fight for, and make sure that you have some sort of documentation that you're showing that whoever used the beat agreed that you would get a portion of the composition, that you would get a writer share of the composition, or maybe you only get a publisher share. You see all kinds of different things. Depending, it's negotiable like anything. If you're working with some really well-known artist that's going to break you, then maybe you're not going to fight for a writer share. But I think as a manager, it's important to just know specifically what the different types of rights are, what the different types of contracts you could be doing, because all these things are negotiable. But as a manager, your role would be to understand the differences and know when to fight for, for a composition share. Or I've seen things where you don't have a writer share, but you do get a piece of the publishing, or maybe you only get a share of the mechanical rights and not. It can be very complicated, but it can also be very simple, where maybe you get the full share for the music composition. It depends, on your contribution as well. But these are some of the questions that should be asked from that.
Nicole, Anthem is very involved in collecting cues for audio visual and working with companies that have engaged composers. Can you just talk about what needs to be collected when a manager has a composer who they're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not very dissimilar to regular, commercial writing as well. We still need splits. We still need that kind of information. But we rely heavily in our situation with our TV and film clients on cue sheet submission. So it's really, really important that people are tracking the cue sheets and ensuring that those get submitted. So from our perspective as a publisher on the TV and film side, The PROs won't actually accept cue sheets from us. They have to come from the production companies themselves. So it's really important that the composers are ensuring that their splits and things are available and accurate with those production companies, so that they can be submitted to the PRO so that they can be paid. We'll still do the registrations and still follow up. PROs don't love that we send them cue sheets, but we kind of want to make sure that they get sent, because sometimes they don't. It really is the last thing that broadcasters and production companies are thinking about. So I would just say, just make sure that your splits again are accurate and are included on those cue sheets so that they can be submitted and registered.
So we've had a couple questions prior to this session, and also one in the chat about when is an independent songwriter or when does a manager know that it's an appropriate time to be engaging? What's the time in a songwriter's career where they should be talking to a music publisher? So anyone who wants to jump in on that one, maybe Jordan?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I always want to, we as a company kind of have a philosophy on getting in early. So I think, as a manager representing a songwriter or an artist, I want to hear anything that's good. So if the second you think something is good, I want to hear it. I don't want to wait. I don't know that there's a specific time. I think depending on the kind of deal that you're going after for your songwriter might dictate when you want to engage a publisher or not. If you're, going after a big, advanced deal, then obviously you want to be able to show that your songwriter can generate some revenue. So you might want to wait until there's some money rolling in so that, you can go after a bigger advance. But if you're looking for more of a development deal or somebody to be kind of there from the ground up kind of situation, then I think, the earlier you engage a publisher and a creative partner on the songwriting side, the better.
Anyone else on the panel? Do you have an answer to that one?
I can't disagree with Jordan. I mean, one of the things that, just to go on what Jordan's saying is you want to see that someone's doing the work too. So when you're engaging with a publisher, you're looking to expand your relationship and your team. And again, like just going back to where a publisher is, back in the day, people just looked at publishers. I think I've heard managers actually say this to me and I'm like, I can't believe you said that. But they've said like, a publisher is just a bank, but it's like, no, we're not just a bank. We are a partner. And so when you're ready to expand your team and grow for your writer, I think that's a good point. And every publisher is different. Like, Jordan saying he wants to be in there early. There's some publishers that want to see a bit more legwork. Again, like Jordan said, it depends on what you're looking for. Everyone wants to be in there early, I think, because, in Canada, and, again, I won't speak for everyone. In Canada, I think we like to see the growth of our writers and see how they can go beyond the borders and be there early for them to support them and help lift them up.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think one of the major factors as to why we kind of have to be a little early is because we're competing with, the big monster down south. And so part of that means that if we want to be able to compete with them, both, financially speaking, then means that we do have to take some risks and get in a little bit earlier to help keep that talent signed in Canada.
I have another question. What about an artist who has a long past catalog, who's never worked with a publisher? What would you say are the best first steps towards that type of publishing relationship?
I'll jump here. I had this actually a couple of years ago with somebody that we're working with, and he had a great catalog. He had been approached. I think somebody wanted to buy his catalog. He wasn't quite ready yet because he was still creating. And I said to him, like, I think, again, it goes back to relationships. The whole business is based on relationships. So trusting a publisher and trusting with someone that they're going to be working for you, and you have that cheerleader in your corner. I mean, with this person, I think we spoke for 2 years, to be honest, before, he was like, you know what, I really would like to make this a formal thing, because I would give him advice, like when things would come up, and just help him along, and just say, like, you know, you're not really doing anything with your catalog, but you should be, because there's great songs in there and you need someone working them. You know, and this goes back to like catalogs, like reinvigorating them and having them out, and how do you bring them back to life? Because if you don't have a team around you, if you don't have a manager that is there for you at that point in your career, because maybe you had the manager, but now the manager is not there anymore, but now you need to start rebuilding your team. So that's the other thing is, you know, rebuild your team and go find a team that's going to help put value to your catalog. So, you know, again, it's about relationships. And I think it doesn't hurt to approach anyone and say, like, here's what I've done. Here's what I have. These are my big wins. Like, these are my big hits. Or these are the songs that I think are the biggest hits.
I also think it's a little bit about managing expectations. And so, you know, as a you know, a songwriter or a composer with a catalog, you know, knowing what to expect. And you know, I've had some songwriters with you know, back catalogs that are currently unpublished come to me and say that there's hundreds of thousands of dollars out there for me around the world, and I want to be able to collect it and whatever. And then, you know, you do your due diligence and you find out that no, it was never released digitally, and it was, you know, there was a small pocket in South Africa that thought you were famous or something, but nobody else around the world. So, you know, maybe doing some due diligence and making sure that you know what your catalog is worth, and maybe looking at your SOCAN statements or your PRO statements and kind of gauging whether, you know, having some kind of understanding of what you want your publishing relationship to be for you going forward, I think is important too.
And I think that's a really good point that maybe Nicole can talk about, is the fact I learned the term 4 years ago. You guys taught me about income tracking, and that's digging deep into the statements from every country, and they give you a great profile on the territories that you're really strong in, but they also, a publisher can help you really dig down deep to see why you're not getting money into different territories. Can you comment on that, Nicole?
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to jump in on that because it's such a great point that Jordan made. I think there's a lot of artists, songwriters out there who, you know, come to us and say, you know, I am owed, like, I know I'm owed so much money from this place and I should be getting so much more. And then when you do the work and you dig in and you talk to our partners, which are our PROs in other territories or our sub-publishers, that, you know, you find out, oh, well, you know, we never received registrations, or, you know, the type of deal that you have with your publisher isn't a worldwide deal because you only signed a deal that was for North America. So we were unable to collect for you, you know, internationally or things like that, or, you know, but, you know, the registrations need to be sent and collected. But one of the things that we do is we will look at those statements from our sub-publishers and our other international partners, and we'll make sure that you're registered. We'll look at airings data if we have broadcast or whatever type of data we can look at if we're looking at MediaNet and other kinds of international sources, that we can see where the airings have happened, you know, where you're getting spins, you know, what we should be collecting. We just work with our partners to ensure that you're actually paid what you should from those international sources as well. But it really does start with your relationship with your publisher and ensuring that, you know, the terms of your agreement allow us to collect internationally for you, and that you've provided us with everything that we need to in order to do that.
And I think, Odette, you were commenting that one of the first pieces of advice you give to new managers who you're working with is just let us do this. We can help you, and you can then focus on other things. I thought that was a great piece of advice.
Yeah, I was going to say quickly, just to, you know, to go along with what Nicole was saying, but also what Cheryl was saying, is that you know, it is about relationships, and the relationship between the manager and the publisher is great. You know, like the manager, a lot of my relationships with the manager, like the manager is the central space, you know, so you're collecting, you have statements from the label and you have statements from the publisher and you have all this other information, and you can, you know, the manager's role is to sort of centralize all that. But it's really beneficial when the manager calls out things and points out, points us in the right direction, but they don't, but then let us do it, point us to one direction, and we'll do the income tracking, we'll do the backline research. And that's the sort of teamwork between the publisher and the manager. And I think, those are the most beneficial relationships that we have, is when the managers are just like, hey, what's this, and sometimes it's nothing, but it doesn't matter. It's our job to go and find out what it was, so those are the best relationships we have. Yeah.
So there's a couple questions from about how to choose a publisher, and what's the difference in sync versus licensing. Just wanting to say, every one of the publishers you're seeing on the screen in front of you is very different. You need to decide what you want. We talked about the creative side of things. We talked about the administration side of things. We talked about the business development and sync. Not all publishers do all those things. Not all the deals include all those things. And you need to really have some conversations and decide what you need before you start interviewing publishers to decide which one is the best one and the best fit for you as a manager and for your artists. And there's different kinds of deals too. Cheryl, can you just talk about that? Some are the different types. Sometimes it's just an administration deal, and other times it's a full-fledged deal with creative. If you could just touch on that.
Yeah, it goes back to, like we said, what is it that you're looking for first and foremost? Like if you're a catalog writer that isn't writing anymore, and that's more, just has catalog, never had a publisher, or even has had a publisher but wants a new publishing deal, that might just be an administration deal. With most administration deals that we do, it does include the sync rights to be able to pitch your stuff to film and TV and clear it. The deals that we do as well, we do have the full publishing deals, we'll call them administration and co-publishing deals. Those include all rights. So it's called mechanicals, performance, and sync. If you're looking for someone, a partner that is just going to pitch you for sync and you don't want them to collect any of your royalties for you, that would be a sync rep deal. We do those, and I think almost everyone on this call probably does do them. It's not necessarily a main priority for a publisher, but there are sync rep companies out there, and what they do is they just do sync and they charge a percentage for what they get, not, a monthly retainer or anything like that. It's like if they land something, they take a percent. They wouldn't get any of your performance income or your mechanical income. So with our publishing deals, administration or co-publishing, there might be an advance that is involved in that. And it's advance on royalties. So you have to look at it as, we're banking on collecting a certain amount of money out there for you, and we're giving you money, and we believe in you, and that we're going to believe that we recoup that money. It doesn't always happen, but it doesn't mean that we don't love you any less. So I think, again, it's when you go and have the conversations with people, express what it is that you want, and also try to give us a picture of what you want to do in the next year, and then also maybe 5 years. Like maybe you're a touring artist, and currently right now touring is not really something that's viable, but you need the help, and we know that touring will come back. So what is that going to look like? Are we going to continue to develop you as a writer and find you homes for your songs as co-writes, like what Jordan's saying, get you involved in song camps? That probably would look more like a co-publishing agreement development deal than an administration deal.
And we had a question about, do publishers specialize in different things? I think we're hearing the answer, yes, they do. They can be very different strengths. They very different strengths in different territories. So Patrick from Hivetown's on this, and they've been focusing really on taking writers to Korea to write for K-pop. You need to ask those questions if you have aspirations to be doing cryo writing in different territories. Different publishers have different strengths in different territories. So it's an important question to ask.
Can I just add quickly to that as well? It's finding out also like their partners, like Jordan's touched on sub-publishers. And for everyone who doesn't know what a sub-publisher is, it's going to be our publishing partner in another country where we don't have an office. So, there is no CCS UK office. So they've partnered with a publisher there who is, working their songs into film and TV, or sorry, advertising more so because it's blanket licensing, but finding opportunities for them. And so Jordan is going to have a relationship with that. And same with like Odette and Anthem. Like I know we have a relationship with Anthem outside of Canada for certain territories, like South America. So I don't know how much their team talks to our South American office for opportunities, but there's the collaboration aspect that also comes up with sub-publishers is what can you bring as a publisher to my writer that might be outside of Canada? Like I get briefs from Korea that I can share with my writers all the time. I get briefs for film and TV. We actually just did a seminar yesterday for our writers for sync writing, for just advertising. So it's like, if that's a world you want to be into, let's have you talk to our advertising team and do like a 101. So connecting also with your publishers, partners globally is also very important and beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for people to understand that there's different strengths, different things, but one of the things that a lot of publishers are very good at is pitching to labels. And it doesn't happen often in Canada that outside songs are taken by labels, but in the rest of the world, that's the norm. And we worked with SOCAN and learned that 65% of the money from SOCAN's top performing writers and composers is from non-performing composers and songwriters. They may never have been an artist. And there's a future in songwriting and in composing that, and all of you I know also work with producers. So there's a whole other world. And as you move off and you have family commitments and other things and don't want to be touring, moving into more songwriting, producing, and composing can be a really solid, strong second career. And I know, Cheryl, we've talked about that in the past too. So feel free, I know we're running out of time. Feel free to contact me and I can put you in touch with any of these publishers. People were asking about where they can learn more. We're going to be working with Amy and her team to talk about how we can do more with the Music Managers Forum in 2021 to make sure that you have all the information you need about publishing and you can learn more about our members. And we're also going to be offering Music Publishing 101 two-day course starting in the first quarter of 2021. So some of you may be interested in that. Are there any final questions before we close out? Thank you very much for having us. And thank you to the panel.
Yes, thank you so much, Margaret, and thank you, panelists. I know that this was something that our audience is always wanting to learn more about, and it sounds like from a lot of the comments and questions that you have clarified so many things for so many of us out there. But we will send out an email after this with more information. Margaret, we can include your email address there, and we'll also have this recording posted on our YouTube channel so you can re-watch it and continue to learn.